This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pia Hontiveros. It's the birth centennial of the late former President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos, a private and special occasion for his family and supporters. But for others, the event today, a wake-up call for Filipinos to stand up against dictatorship. Our senior correspondent David Santos has the story.
They came uninvited, so they had no qualms about being snubbed at the party. Marcos supporters gathered outside libingan ng mga bayani as early as 4 Monday morning, hoping to be part of the centennial birth commemoration of their beloved Apo Lakay. Instead, they ended in a line outside the gate, hardly able to peek at those who were actually invited. The air was charged with tension when a handful of anti-Marcos protesters showed up.
Yan po, wala po silang utak.
Karamihan nila binayaran yun.
Kayo po, hindi po kayo binayaran?
Hindi.
Soon, a bigger anti-Marcos contingent arrives and the noise outside the libingan ng mga bayani crescendos. Protesters also slammed President Duterte, branding him as the reincarnation of the late strongman. Policemen and soldiers had to separate the two opposing groups to maintain order.
Ilan lang na masyang ang lakas naman ng loob nila.
To quote Lian Alejandro, the line of fire is a place of honor. Kami naririto, hindi kami takot.
But except for a minor tiff, there were no reported untoward incidents. Just like his controversial burial last year, today's ceremony was also a private affair, with the Marcos family opting to spend this special occasion with select family and friends. According to the police, there were about 250 guests, including Manila Mayor and former President Joseph Estrada. Marcos's only son, Ferdinand Jr., spoke about, quote, the journey in writing the history of his father and living his dream for the country.
A united, happy, strong family that belonged to the international community of nations. Let us not let that dream falter. Let us not let that dream die until we have made it real for our beloved country and for our beloved countrymen.
But for those who suffered under the late dictator's regime, the Marcos dream is a nightmare. Martial law victim Nery Colmenares says while he cannot stomach all the good graces the once detested family is now getting, he is counting on the Filipinos to once again stand up for justice and democracy.
The moment you lose trust on the Filipino people, then you will lose hope. For me, these are the two important facets of our struggle.
David Santos, CNN Philippines.
For President Rodrigo Duterte, as far as Ilocanos are concerned, the late President Marcos is a hero. Mr. Duterte says debating on this will just divide the nation. He's the president in his own words.
He was a president. To the Ilocanos, he was the greatest president. Why do we have to debate on that? It's one day where they can celebrate the anniversary of a great Ilocano. As far as the Ilocanos is concerned, Marcos is a hero. Kaya to dwell on this thing for so long a time will just divide the nation.
Vice President Leni Robredo says she respects the Marcos family's right to remember the centennial birth anniversary of former President Marcos. However, she believes that there is a move to revise history to favor the narrative of the Marcoses. Robredo also reacts to Ilocos Norte Governor Amy Marcos's daring pronouncements on Sunday. The governor said her brother, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, will claim the nation's second highest office soon. In 2016, Bongbong Marcos filed an election protest questioning Robredo's victory in the vice presidential race. In response, Robredo said the High Court has upheld the integrity of the 2016 elections.
Aking ading ni Apo Vice President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Huwag kayong mainip, malapit na.
Ito naman yung pinakahuling desisyon ng Supreme Court, pinapakita na hindi sila nagsasabi ng totoo. Maraming mga kasinungalingan na pinapapaniwala sa tao.
Robredo also believes that the Marcos family's offer to return alleged ill-gotten wealth must be unconditional and that they should be held accountable. Senator Antonio Trillanes issues waivers for his supposed bank accounts and dares President Duterte to do the same. This is the latest in the word war between the two. On Saturday, the president turned the tables on Trillanes, saying the senator has a number of joint bank accounts with Chinese nationals in Hong Kong, Malaysia, Australia, and the United States. Before this, the senator claimed the president's son, Davao City Vice Mayor Paulo Duterte, is part of an international crime syndicate. But Trillanes is denying everything to prove he has no offshore accounts. He signed 12 waivers authorizing the Ombudsman and the Anti-Money Laundering Council to open 12 accounts said to belong to him. Trillanes says 3 of these are in banks that don't even exist. Trillanes says he has looked into these alleged bank accounts as claimed by the president and traced them back to reports from news anchors Erwin Tulfo, the blog of Assistant Press Secretary Mocha Uson, and the Davao Breaking News website owned by Ben Teshorna, who was a contributor of CNN Philippines. Trillanes says he will file cases against those who posted photos of these accounts. Meanwhile, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Sal Panelo says the president has already executed a waiver back in May 2016 with the Bank of the Philippine Islands in connection with Trillanes' allegation that the president has 211 million pesos in his savings account. Panelo says the waiver remains valid. In a statement, CNN Philippines management says Ben Teshorna is not an employee of CNN Philippines. He was a contributor whose stories were used by CNN Philippines on occasion. The plot thickens in the case of Carl Arnaiz and his friend Reynaldo de Guzman. It turns out the body with 31 stab wounds found in a ditch in Nueva Ecija is not de Guzman's. At least, that's what the police found out from the DNA tests. Our JC Gotinga reports.
So whose body lies in this coffin? If this is not Reynaldo de Guzman, then where is he? We all thought this was the body of the 14-year-old boy who was last seen with his friend Carl Arnaiz. But now, the Philippine National Police says it's the wrong corpse.
Based on the results obtained, the source of the DNA profile obtained from the male cadaver, hindi siya si Reynaldo de Guzman, hindi siya yung anak nilang mag-asawa.
On September 6, authorities retrieved the body of a boy from this ditch in Gapan City, Nueva Ecija. It had 31 stab wounds and bore signs of torture. Reynaldo's parents identified it as their missing son, and they were sure about it.
Sigurado nga. Kasi palatandaan ako sa kanya eh. May peklat na rito, may pre-peklat dito sa leeg. Tapos may kulugo yan dito. Malaki kulugo yan dito eh. Kulugo.
The police then ran mandatory DNA tests on the body and compared its profile with DNA samples from the blood and mouths of Reynaldo de Guzman's parents. The result? No match with either the fathers nor the mothers.
Yes, because we will rely more, or we'll incline to believe more the result of the scientific test or the DNA test conducted on the body.
The Public Attorney's Office is disputing the DNA findings.
Ang DNA, reliable yan kung yung specimen ay same specimen. Kapag nagkaroon po ng mishandling of specimen, pwedeng hindi po matama ang findings.
So it's back to square one for the police, who now have 2 problems to solve. Where is Reynaldo de Guzman? And whose body did they find in that ditch in Nueva Ecija?
The person himself, we don't know. We don't know.
JC Gotinga, CNN Philippines.
The top stories from around the world. Hurricane Irma tore through southwest Florida in the United States Sunday, leaving massive devastation in the Sunshine State. Irma made landfall as a Category 4 storm, bringing powerful winds, torrential rains, and dangerous storm surges. Irma's fury turned streets into rivers, uprooted trees, and left millions of residents without power. Irma has been downgraded to a Category 1 as it heads toward the states of Georgia and Alabama. 19 people are confirmed dead in the aftermath of a magnitude 8.1 earthquake that struck off Mexico's southern coast. It was the most powerful tremor to hit the country in a century and was felt as far as Mexico and Guatemala cities by an estimated 15 million people. The quake struck just before midnight on Thursday when many residents were still asleep. Authorities recorded multiple aftershocks, including at least 6 tremors measuring above magnitude 5. The majority of the deaths were reported in the state of Oaxaca, where homes and buildings collapsed. Relief and rescue efforts continued through the weekend. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you again tomorrow for News Night, where we go above and beyond the headlines.